Yeah, he's been ready just like it.
Like, all right.
Okay. So apparently they can hear us, but we can't hear them. So if they want to communicate with us, too bad.
They're gonna wave furiously or something.
Right.
And is it still going on in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just finished communion.
Oh, really? Okay, so,
Really were late.
That's impressive. Yeah.
I apologize, Jane, that the announcement did not get in the bulletin last week, although there weren't very many people here, so they
Anyway.
probably wouldn't have seen it. I had submitted it, but apparently they worked way ahead because of
Yeah.
all the holidays.
Sure, yeah.
And
There
so the
was
same thing happened for this week, that next week's announcement, I think it didn't make it into the bulletin this week, even though I thought I submitted it far in advance.
If you want to hear about the comedy of errors for the first liturgy, I can talk about that. It's just, this whole 2 weeks have just been.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
well, so next week, so this week is Jane, and I sent out an email, you may have seen.
Yeah.
Because I thought, well, it wasn't in the bulletin and we had a little break. And so I just sent it to like everybody I could think of, whoever comes. Or has ever come. And or who has told me that they might come. Yeah, I mean, I stretched.
My guess is you covered the base.
I tried. And so next week is going to be Bob Lundeen or London. I don't know how you pronounce his name. I should ask him.
Lundeen.
What?
Lundeen. The
I
first-
thought I said Lundeen, but all of a sudden I've had two different people call him London lately, and I'm like, oh, I've been wrong.
When he calls me to leave the
He says, "This is
voicemail
Bob
about,
Lundeen."
remember? Yeah, when he said.
I'm glad because I'm glad because for years I've called him Bob Lundeen, and then
Yeah.
like in the last 2
Yeah.
weeks, two different people have called him Bob London to me, and I'm like,
Hang on.
have I been doing this wrong all these times? Yeah.
So
So
it's hard to correct someone who's been calling you the wrong thing for a long time.
Yes,
I had an older neighbor who called me BJ for years.
well,
Whoops.
and you know, I first met LB. She was Laura Beth.
I was always LB, Joyce. It just took me a lot of years to start claiming. it.
Telling
Yeah.
people I'm LB.
Because
yeah.
what happens when saying, hi, I'm Laura Beth.
I was worried about that. They dropped. Yeah.
Oh, you muted me. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. You're not mute now. You're on mute. You're not muted.
I won't say anything.
No, you're good. You can talk all you want. What happened was the como se dice, the adult formation, they dropped out. So I need them to log in again. And I think she's probably talking, so I'm gonna text Josh, I think, because he was there.
Oh, Josh is there. I see Josh.
Yeah.
Hi, Josh. You won't talk to me.
Hey. Well, no, they dropped, so he's not here anymore. But he's in the room. And they're not going to be listening for us because they couldn't hear us. We need her to log in again. Question mark. Thanks. Who else can I think? Who else was in that room? LB was. I don't think I saw. Who else did I see? Who else was in that room? I wasn't paying close enough attention. Darn it. She hasn't seen it. Who else was in there? Let me see if I can go back and see who is there. Oh no, they never made it on it. Darn it. I'm just gonna call her. Hello? 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 Joyce? We need you to log back in. Joyce? We're not on Zoom. Joyce? Hello, hello?
I'm sorry, I got a text from Laura. Crash.
Eh.
Log in again.
Thank you.
Wait a second until it's logged in.
Okay. They're logging back in again. Yay!
Oh, there's a group.
Yeah.
I see Edna.
Oh, Edna's there. Cool.
Now they're moving.
Yeah, they're there, but we don't hear them. I'm gonna.
Morning, Jan.
Now can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, I was having trouble with the audio,
Great time.
clicking off.
Bills, man, I tell you.
So we've started already, Jan, but then the Zoom crashed, so we're restarting. Again, Jane Stoller Shop is talking about hospitality.
And Jan
Okay,
just got out.
yeah, I know,
Yeah.
I know, but
And I know.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking about whether or not we came from families that were welcoming. If you were churchgoers, if you were involved in hosting people ever at church, if your home was open to others, and if that was a comfortable thing or if it was a stressful thing. Would your family have volunteered to keep a student or two overnight and get them, schlep them back to church in the morning, whatever? Are there good memories associated with having guests in your home, or are they stressful? And did you ever talk about these kinds of things with your parents? What did your parents model there? What about somebody who is in significant need or in a crisis of some kind, a transition and needed a place to stay? Would you have taken somebody in? What did it mean to welcome others and to have others in your home? Anybody want to share some thoughts there?
Zoom, just wanted to
Yeah,
check
it
out.
crashed and we reset it.
It crashed?
Yeah, so this is
I didn't
our,
hear that sound.
yeah, well, it crashed.
It crashed quietly.
I
Yeah.
can tell you mine, my family, it was very welcoming when somebody was actually in the house, but the prep to get there was just like awful. And my mother was a meticulous housekeeper, a skill I've never learned. For one thing, she wouldn't teach me because I could never meet her standards.
Mm.
And
We had the same mom there.
how about that? How can we didn't know that? Yeah. And so like when I wanted to have friends over, they were good about that. They were both kind of introverted people. They had some people from church over occasionally. But I remember a vacation where we were renting a little cabin and there was a cabin next door that had a family and we decided, it was just a couple and their son. And my parents were like, I said, why don't we invite them over for a game night? And my mother's like, well, okay, but she had to clean that cabin from top to bottom. And by the time she was done, it was too late.
Oh.
Oh my goodness.
And so
Sounds like a
that was
parable or something.
Yeah.
What?
It does.
Sounds like a
Terrible.
parable, yeah.
Right, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, the house was a disaster if there was like a folded newspaper next to a
Oh
chair,
my
you know?
goodness, yeah.
That was just like, yeah.
Yeah.
But everything sparkled.
So did that overshadow the whole thing, or did you still enjoy?
Well,
being-
I was so much more social than they were, that I just kind of, I still invited people over. When I got like teenage years, you know, when I was older. But they would never like have a student stay overnight.
Hmm.
I don't think so. They were hospitable in other ways.
Mhm.
Like I saw them give things away to people who
Hmm.
were less fortunate and things like that.
Yeah.
Looking back, do you think it was awkwardness, anxiety, or boundaries?
I
that
think
they
it
had?
was their personality. They were both
Okay.
really introverted.
Yeah,
And I think it was that compulsion for perfection
okay.
and presenting.
Showing
mean,
what, showing.
I
what-
mean, you know, have you ever had the thing where you try to think of what your family motto was growing up? I feel like my family motto was, what will the neighbors think?
So I've been doing a little bit of thinking about, this is fun that we're talking about this. I think my parents would have been, if you were to ask me the same question, so I'll answer it and then I'll tell you the experience. They would have been, they really want people over, but with mom's health and with a whole bunch of, with a big family in a small house, the things were just overwhelming all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And because of that, there was always like poor, like either no or poor planning. So the feeling like, oh, let's do this, and then like actually like the steps to get there just goes flat. So I feel like my parents were very generous and open, but mom's not feeling good 70% of the time, and everybody is just overwhelmed. And bad planners, because you can't plan when you constantly are stressed out. So like with me, like really like from like, let's say, what I remember from like 5 to like, let's say 8th grade, always family coming over, and that was good. We didn't have a heck of a lot of prep. Everybody was middle messy kind of so it was like so lots of people in the house, and that kind of almost set the precedent for the openness, which was nice. But like I mentioned before, small house, lots of kids, so that made it even worse, of that sense of if anybody comes over, it's this big, intense deal. So then for me, changing from like from high school, when I moved out, we changed churches. And my friends all had like kind of bigger, less full places to live. So it took me a while to get over my own kind of embarrassment of about small house, lots of people for them to, but my parents were always welcoming and warm. So that was more kind of like on me. So that's how, yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I would have answered yes to almost every question. Did your parents have people, you know, this, constantly? We lived in a college town, think something like Wheaton, even smaller, small town. We had people live with us, be relatives or a relative of a relative going to college. So we gave them a place to be. The most remarkable thing to me is that every 4 years, my missionary cousins from Haiti came back on furlough. And while the parents, I mean, we just absorbed their family into our house. And while the parents went off on what they called deputation, they had to go visit all the churches that supported them. And my mom just had extra kids then. And but we loved it. And so you said, how did you feel about it? I loved all the people who lived with us. The only thing I remember is that we were also like Sunday dinner people, you know, and you bring people home from church. And I do remember as a child that sometimes we'd say to our parents, can we have just the family for dinner? You know, so
The
I think.
usual answer was no.
Yeah. That's probably true. So usually it was it felt good to us as children, but there must have been something that said once in a while, we want a little break. I don't know what that means.
I'm thinking about what you said, Joyce, and remembering that I had, as an adolescent, I had 2 jobs when we were gonna have company,
Mhm.
which we had a lot of because my father was a pastor. We had lots of people in our home. My job from probably when I was 8 or 9 until I left home, well, maybe years before that, but was to go around the house with a can of a Comet cleanser and one of those scrubby sponge deals and go shine up the chrome in all the bathrooms.
Oh, my.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, and I think for a pastor,
Yeah.
the stakes are high, the standard is
maybe.
higher. You know, there's like an expectation that they're supposed to somehow be perfect. I mean, I remember when we had a pastor family come in, you know, to the church. And they had teeny little kids who acted like their age. And there were people who were like, well, you know, what kind of parents are they? But they can't control you, you know, it's like, yeah.
Yeah,
I think the standards are awfully high and
yeah. Well, and I think they felt some pressure there. It was a church plant, so everything was new, and people were new to each other, you know. Well, the other thing I was supposed to do was get out the good bedspread
Mhm.
on mom and dad's bed because everybody piled their coats. So, so anything else before we move on? Talking about whether or not our families were welcoming growing up. Jan, yeah.
We were very welcoming. We had a basement that was maybe put together for parties and before dances and proms. We had a pre-com prom type party and then went on there. We had 3 exchange students at different times. The one thing though that happened, I mean, my brother, it was my brother and I and mom and dad, and that was, and Owen and my grandma, my dad's mom. But she sort of stayed out of the picture. But we could have parties anytime and anybody could come anytime. And that sort of was the same with our friends we had. You know, and as long as we called home to let them know what time or where we were. And it was fine, whether it be 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, or whatever. And it was good. We did have during the times when the blacks had their own schools, and we had our own school, that we lived in a farming area, and we had 2 girls in my class in 5th grade who were daughters of migrant farmers, and they were both black. But to me, that was fine. My mom and dad both worked. They got home 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night. My brother was in a private school, an Episcopal school near us. So I usually came home alone, and I brought the 2 girls home. And mom came home, dad came home, and that was the last time the black girls came into the house. But it was, you know, I sort of went back in my thoughts, in my mind, to see, you know, what brought me to the vocation that I finally chose, and all the steps I made.
The journey along the way, yeah.
That was sort of an interesting thing to do. You know, now, what brought me, what did I do?
Well, that leads into the next question I was thinking about is, what then from our histories informed the choices we made and make as adults in our own homes? Maybe you can say something about that. What kinds of choices have you made about opening your homes or not? Somebody said something about the chaos, I think, and I think it's true that if you're going to have other people in your home, there is some degree of order that has to go into being ready to be open in any way, for most people. So I'm just curious how some of you have experienced that. Also, if you see those kinds of decisions as related to the expression of your faith.
Hmm.
You can say something about that. Sheila, yeah.
I think for me, I grew up with 3 siblings and a house that wasn't very big, and our house was a little bit chaotic because there's obviously a lot going on. And my mother did piles of things everywhere just to create, order out of chaos, I think. And I think I established the same frequently, but we moved throughout my kids' lives, and my parents stayed in the same house. So every year or two, we would, and I would have to deal with the piles. So that was different for me, but I also, in that moving, had to be good about reaching out to other people, and I had to be receptive to other people reaching out to me. And we were involved with our church growing up, and we were involved with teams and other kinds of things, and we would have classmates that would come home with us. But I think as watching my parents put themselves in the community as volunteers, as a result, I ended up volunteering to teach religious education, to be the troop leader, to be the person who helped in the classroom, because not everybody will do it. And as harsh as it was every time we moved to like put myself out there, I think it helped set an example for my children too. And knowing that people were welcoming my children into their home every time they were the new kid, and knowing that my parents had done the same, it helped me go out and do it. I hope that really
Sure does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I live on the 4th floor of an apartment building with no elevator, so that's already logistically somewhat determinant of who comes over. But the sad part is a couple of my aunts will never be in the home, which is sad because I want to show off, I want to share. So then I look for ways to do that, other video calls or photos.
Yeah.
And that's not just a here's a cool looking thing, but that's very important to me to do that with them, is to share videos or photos with people who can't be in my home, who I'm really close with. My wife's family was very different from mine, specifically regarding the amount of people who lived in their home. So my level of comfortability with having somebody over compared to Aubrey's, she's like, we need to clean the house before, Kevin comes over. And I'm like, dude, this is fine. So I'm very much more a spur of the moment still for people who just want to hop in. And typically that's, and I have an excitement to share what I have. Because when I go over other places, I love it when people show like a cool thing, like something that they're excited about because it's theirs. And that also is at childhood, that was a regular thing. Friends come over and you show them your new stuff, or you go look at the new deck that I built with my dad that I'm still very proud of to this day. And so that kind of sharing the space is very important to me. Yeah.
I've asked a few people to read some pieces of scripture that talk about the foreigner and the stranger and the alien. Those terms are used a lot in the Old Testament that essentially mean the refugees of that day, really. We are new to this church, and it was a cool thing to us to learn that though the towns around here largely are unwelcoming to the asylum seekers sent up here from Texas in a bus, that this church is welcoming, and this community, the town of Glen Ellen, is welcoming. I think that's pretty cool. the not in my backyard thing, of course, is, prevalent around here. So these passages all remind us that God is always concerned about justice, about loving our neighbor, about not taking advantage of visitors or the poor. So Jamie's going to start off for us and read a couple of passages from Exodus and from Leviticus.
Okay. Exodus 22:21. You shall not wrong a stranger or oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. And Exodus 23:8. You shall not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds those who have sight and prevents the testimony and the cause of the righteous. Tyler knows, pulls from over here. All right. All right, Leviticus 19:9 and 10. That is right, sorry. Now, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap to the very corners of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest. And you shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather its fallen grapes. You shall leave them for the poor and for the stranger. I am the Lord your God. Leviticus 19:33 and 30. When a stranger resides with you in your land, you shall not oppress or mistreat him. But the stranger who resides with you shall be to you like someone native born among you, and you shall love him as yourself. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God.
Thank you. Josh is going to read from Zechariah and from Malachi. Should I call you Josh or Josh?
That's fine. Yeah, yes, thank you. Was he not responding?
Right, yeah. Yeah, just don't put my middle name in there, right? All right.
Now we want to know.
Yeah, look it up and see if it's on Realm.
Yeah. All right, yep, Zechariah 7:10. This is the middle of a sentence, so I'm gonna go back a little bit. The word of the Lord came to Zechariah, saying, Thus says the Lord of hosts, render true judgments, show kindness and mercy to one another. Do not oppress the widow, the orphan, the alien, or the poor, and do not devise evil in your hearts against one another. I think 11's important.
Go ahead.
But they refused to listen and turned a stubborn shoulder and stopped their ears in order to not hear. They made their hearts adamant in order to not hear the law and the words of the Lord of hosts had sent by his spirit through former prophets. Therefore great wrath came from the Lord of hosts. Just as when I called, they would not hear, so when they call, I will not hear, says the Lord of hosts. And I scattered them with a whirlwind among the nations that they had not known. Good grief, the land was desolate, so that no one went to and fro, and a pleasant land was made desolate. Right? That's a very good passage.
Let's be a warning.
Yeah, right.
And then Malachi 3:5.
If Edna's ready, I gotta flip over. So
Okay,
you want to do yours and then I'll go to.
it's right next to Zechariah.
It is right there.
Mhm.
Look at me failing at my sword, my Bible. Sword. 5. Okay. Then the offering of Judah and Jerusalem will be pleasing to the Lord as in the days of old and in former years. Then I will draw near to you for judgment. I will be swift to bear witness against the sorcerers. Right, 3:5. Yep. Against the adulterers and against those who swear falsely, against those who oppress the hired workers in their wages, against the widows and the orphan, against those who thrust aside the alien and do not fear me, says the Lord of hosts. For I, the Lord, do not change. Therefore you, O children of Jacob, have not perished.
Strong themes of justice.
Yeah.
So Edna is going to read from Hebrews 13, wonderful passage.
Very short.
Object bind. Just going through, decided to come in here on the tail end after seeing my wife lose at Brookdale.
Okay,
Thank
Oh,
you.
wow.
okay, Edna.
This is the beginning of the 13th chapter in Hebrews. Let mutual love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that, some have entertained angels without knowing it. Remember those who are in prison as though you were in prison with them, those who are being tortured as though you yourselves were being tortured.
Thank you.
And here I think the most interesting is the reference to those who have entertained angels, because that refers, of course, to Abraham sitting at the door of his tent and then looking up and seeing that there were three people standing in front of him. And then he welcomes them in. And then afterward, by the time you get to the end of the conversation, Abraham is talking only to one of those three. The other two have gone on ahead. And the next thing that happens is the destruction of Sodom, which is also a punishment for the unhospitality of Sodom.
I read an account from an Egyptian monk who ran a house of hospitality, and he said, we try to treat everybody like an angel just in case.
Like that.
And Joyce is going to read from First Peter and Luke.
Oh, I have a comment too on what you just read about angels. Many years ago, when my kids were still in grammar school and high school, we were visited by a young woman rang our front doorbell. And I opened up the door and I had no idea who she was or whatever, and I have no memory of what she really wanted, but I asked her in. And there was some conversation, we gave her something, a glass of water or a donut or something like that, and she left. And I always thought I was visited by an angel. And I remember that because it was so unexpected. And I felt so blessed that I responded appropriately for an angel.
Joyce.
I'm going to read 1 Peter 4, 8 through 10 from the Message, which probably takes some great liberties, but I loved it. So there you go. Most of all, love each other as if your life depended on it. Love makes up for practically anything. Be quick to give a meal to the hungry, a bed to the homeless, cheerfully. Be generous with the different things God gave, passing them around so all can get in on it. If words, let it be God's words. If help, let it be God's hearty help. That way, God's bright presence will be evident in everything through Jesus, and he'll get all the credit as the one mighty in everything. Encores till to the end of time. Oh, yes. And Luke, I have both of these in. If you want to see the New Revised Standard Version, I have that, but I'm reading the Message just because I like some of the twists. Then he turned to the host. The next time you put on a dinner, don't just invite your friends and family and rich neighbors, the kind of people who will return the favor. Invite some people who never get invited out, the misfits from the wrong side of the tracks. you'll be and experience a blessing. They won't be able to return the favor, but the favor will be returned. Oh, how it will be returned at the resurrection of God's people.
Eugene Peterson was good.
What?
Eugene Peterson was good.
Yeah.
And Sheila is going to read the parable of the Good Samaritan.
An expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he said, what must I do to inherit eternal life? He said to him, what is written in the law? What do you read there? He answered, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind and your neighbor as yourself. And he said to him, you have given the right answer. Do this and you will live. But wanting to vindicate himself, he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? Jesus replied, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell into the hands of robbers, who stripped him, beat him, and took off, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, while traveling, came upon him, and when he saw him, he was moved with compassion. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, treating them with oil and wine. Then he put him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said, take care of him, and when I come back, I will repay you whatever more you spend. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? He said, the one who showed him mercy. Jesus said to him, go and do likewise.
Thank you. I'm struck with the fact that he couldn't have helped in the same way if he had no money with him.
Yeah,
Never thought about it before.
that's good. I was just thinking the priest and the Levite, they had obligations. And they were going to fulfill their holy obligations. It's not like, look at those 2, get real anti-Semite real quick with that. Because the Samaritan was also worshiping Yahweh, had the same prophets.
Interesting.
Something comes to mind, and we have all experienced it, certainly in the summer. All the people on the corners of our streets with the signs need diapers, homeless, need food. And I can't talk for any of you, but I know how I struggle with that. Are these people all part of an organization that is begging for money and they have to split their proceeds with them? And so I've come to the conclusion that I have to help every once in a while. Because it's just really hard for me to pass it by. I'm very much I've been a student of the Bible, and I've seen it happen in the past. And these aren't necessarily immigrants, So there's a handwriting.
What I have done, and I haven't done it in recent years, because where I am now, I don't see that very often. I would keep money in my cup holder, usually $5 bills if I have them.
Yeah.
And I would give out, if I saw that person, I would give them a $5 bill. Now, I didn't do this with every person I saw, but I just tried to keep a little bit of cash there, mainly so I could soothe my conscience. Because I have the same thing that
struggle,
you do.
yeah.
And I will tell you, when we go to Arizona, we go for a week of spring training, they are everywhere, everywhere. And I think it's an organization in Arizona. It's not like what we see here sometimes, that they're on all the street corners,
Sort
the
of
major
as
intersections.
sort of as a comment related to that, media have tracked some of those people and I don't like to put those people, but and found that they may walk 2 or 3 blocks, get into very fancy automobiles and drive home. And, you know, so they make a very good living panhandling and, you know, and so it's something that I really tend to ignore because I think in many cases it's a racket and I really feel badly about that. But I think in today's society, there are many people out there taking advantage of imagery, if you will.
LB is going to read us the passage in Matthew 25 that's sort of the, at least in my mind, sort of the crowning passage with this concept.
When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did." And then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me." They also will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or needing clothes, or sick, or in prison, and did not help you?" He will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life.
So if we take this at its word, we are going to be judged, at least in part, before God someday, according to how we responded to the needs of those around us. I don't know about all of you. I have heard one sermon on this passage my entire life. And it was not in this country. I don't know.
I've always thought it was kind of the crux of the gospel, you know, one of them.
Yeah.
So. I mean,
Yeah.
Shame on bad preachers.
It was not my intent.
No, they're gonna be judged so harshly. I'm not looking forward to it.
Well, Jane, Jane, John, LB, David, you remember the Matthew 25 ministries. I don't know if that continues
Still is there.
It does.
at
It does.
St. Mark's Geneva, but that was really started by Donna Lobbs
Mhm.
in, how do we make that, bring that to fruition?
Mhm. Yeah, I know.
I'm trying to sit with the awkwardness that I feel. Cause yeah, John, I know about those stories that you're saying. That's absolutely true. I mean, I agree. So I try to do that. I try to do with the conviction that I have. I try to do reading the scriptures on their face, but also know that I can't put my own lens on the text itself and say that's the
Hey, I don't know why they dropped that time. Um. Darn it. I'm not sure if we should go back or. Let me get her back on the phone. Oh. Um. Okay, I thought that would do that, but it didn't. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. Okay. Here we go. Hey, you dropped again. Do you wanna just go to the we're 14 minutes from 10:30. Do you wanna log in again or do you wanna just go to whatchamacallit? Yeah, yeah. So if you could log in again, that would be great. You don't have to if you don't want to. If, we could just go to